In business today, three things to know. First, Fed monthly minutes. Janet Yellen and the group say the billion-dollar bond buying program could end by October. And the minutes suggest that the Federal Reserve is not eager to raise interest rates. How will the Fed's comments impact the markets? Then, bogus benefits, how the government paid out $100 billion of taxpayer money to people who did not deserve it. And Brazilian waxed. After failure on the field, can the World Cup host salvage a financial victory? Arise Exchange starts now. Hello, everyone. I'm Andrew Schmertz. It's an October surprise delivered in July. The U.S. Federal Reserve gave clear indications Wednesday that quantitative easing, also known as the monthly bond buying program, could end by Halloween. The Fed would also end the program with one last $15 billion purchase, providing the economy continues on its current pace. The markets staged a small rally on the news. Let's take a look at the final numbers. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 78.99 to 16,985. The S&P 500 up 9. And the Nasdaq up 27.57 to 44.19. We are in the midst of corporate earnings season, so here's a look at some of the stocks we're keeping a close eye on today. The Container Store reporting $173.4 million in its first quarter revenue of an 8.6% increase over the same quarter last year. These earnings in spite of a tough winter and what it called a retail funk. The Container Store closing down to 27, nearly 9%. WD-40 Company reporting its third quarter earnings after the bell. The company brought in $95.7 million in revenue. That's up 3% from 2013 and in line with estimates. WD-40 said its sales saw a boost due to a favorable foreign exchange rate closing at 76.11, up 79 cents. Bob Evans Farms reporting quarterly revenue of $326 million, which was slightly below expectations. The company attributed the poor performance to a brutal winter. It's a good excuse. And historically high production costs. Bob Evans Farms also announced it will open 8 new restaurants throughout 2015. Bob Evans closing down 2 and change. Taking a look at commodities, gold up $11.90 and oil down $102.18. Chris Lowe is chief economist from FTN Financial, here to talk more about what the Fed did today. Chris, welcome back to Arise Exchange. Walk us through what the Fed said today, and it was a little bit of a surprise. Yeah, well, first and foremost, they didn't say nearly as much as they have in the past. They're trying to, it appears anyway, trim their communications back a little bit, eliminate some of the confusion we've had reading their statements. But one thing they did say clearly, for the first time, they gave us an end date for quantitative easing. Probably October, unless something unexpected happens in the economy. Right, exactly. And that's pretty much what the market expected. So not a whole lot of movement on that, but it is nice to have some clarity at least. You know, there are some economists who have said that the Fed could not go below $30 billion a month, for example, and they said that there is no way that the Fed could exit this program because they call what we have an asset bubble. Do you in any way share any of those opinions? Look, you know, first, what the Fed said was we'd like to see 200,000 jobs a month for 6 months before we end it. We've got 5 in a row now. That's pretty good. They said that, you know, they'd like to see the economy growing faster. Well, we don't necessarily have that in GDP terms, but we have it in other terms. But I think, you know, one of the big misunderstood aspects of this is that it was sort of sterilized. In other words, for every dollar of purchases they made, they borrowed a dollar out of the banking system. So it's not like they were printing money. I think they can end it. And in fact, it will still be stimulative because they've got, you know, over $4 trillion in bonds now sitting on the balance sheet that they will maintain going forward. Yeah, their balance sheet has grown to $4 trillion. What happens now to that balance sheet? What are they going to do with that? Well, for now, they keep reinvesting. So as bonds roll off, as they mature, they'll go back and they'll be buying. So there will still be purchases. And we're almost actually getting to that point now because they've been tapering for a bunch of months where those purchases are bigger than the new ones. So it's not, again, like the Fed is going away entirely.
But then that's the next stage. And they did tell us at some point they'll communicate when those repurchases are going to stop.
Yeah, the Fed's work never seems to be done, especially right now. The next question is you turn your attention to interest rates. And we've had some on the show who say that the Fed may have to raise interest rates a little bit quicker than they had hoped. What do you think?
Well, they're sort of easing into that idea. When we looked at the March minutes, they showed tightening maybe, a month sooner than in December. And then we looked at the June minutes, and they show maybe another month sooner than March. So it is coming a little faster, but it's not like they're going to do this year.
And it's important. You don't think interest rates will go up this year?
No, it'll be the middle of next year, at least the way they're pointing right now.
And we should note there's two things. One, the market seems to accept what they're doing. There's been no sell-off. And the second is that rising interest rates are a sign of a healthier economy. There's a reason that they might raise interest rates.
Well, that's exactly right. And one of the discussions they had today was about the possibility that maybe we'll see some wage growth. And at this stage, most of them seem to think that would be a welcome development. And certainly I agree with that sentiment.
Yeah, when you look at the jobs report, we're still not seeing much real wage pressure here.
No, not at all. And to get it, the unemployment rate still has to come down further. We're sort of easing into that, moving in that direction, but it takes time.
Okay. Chris Lowe, thank you so much from FTN Financial. Appreciate you walking us through the numbers today.
Good to be here.
The government says it handed out $100 billion worth of benefits last year to people who did not deserve them. Those included tax credits to families who did not qualify, unemployment benefits to people who had jobs, and medical payments for treatments that were not needed. The Associated Press reports that the Obama administration has actually reduced the amount of improper payments, but still the waste is huge. Stacy Swimp from the conservative group Project 21 Black Leadership Network is on the phone. Stacy, you are often a critic of big government, and this does appear to be big government run amok. Do any of these numbers surprise you?
I'm not surprised by the report. In light of the fact that big government has always produced corruption and inefficiency on behalf of government and abuse on behalf of private citizens. This is really nothing new.
How does the government, do this? Try to explain to us the accounting system here. There was a really fascinating 60 Minutes piece a couple weeks ago just about Medicare and how that system is being gamed. Are a lot of these payments basically pure fraud?
Oh, I believe so. And again, I'm humored by the numbers. What did they say, 100,000?
100 billion, yes.
100 million. Listen, when you take a look at the federal government, essentially what it is, it's a money transfer machine, essentially. And the government spends hundreds of billions of dollars of taxpayers' money each year on subsidy programs of all kinds. I mean, this is just one example. But at the end of the day, there are more than 1,800 federal subsidy programs right now. We have over 1,800. That's just too much. We need to reduce the size of government, and in many instances, I think we need to eliminate unnecessary federal agencies and put a lot of that responsibility back on the states, because as it is right now, there's no way in the world with so much bureaucracy we're ever going to get to a point of efficiency.
Stacey, you say reduce the size of government, and that's sort of a statement that a lot of people don't necessarily like. But if you put it in terms of reducing fraud and waste, you would probably get almost all Americans behind you on that. And that seems to be what's going on here. This isn't so much size of government. It seems to be that a government that really can't keep accurate tabs on how it's doling out money.
Well, they can't do it because the federal government was never intended to do that. You see, when you have so much, to put it in layman's terms, folks, when you have people who are pushing special interests and lobbyists and big government in favor of particular industries, you're never going to have a situation where you have accountability, and you're always going to have fraud and abuse because the government is out of control, seeking to give favor to particular industries or corporations, etc. We just need to get that under control.
And Stacey, we saw with the VA, for example, people don't get fired. That's really the bottom line here, is there's no accountability because people don't get fired. You give credit to the Obama administration because they have been on a path of trying to reduce these expenditures.
No, I don't credit them at all. I think that
I'm surprised by your answer.
It's what you call fork-tongue language. Under this same administration, we've seen billions of dollars in cash subsidies go to farmers and owners of farmland each year. We could go on and on. Medicare, what we call corporate welfare. And so I think the Obama administration will use what I call trick language, fork-tongue language, to make it seem as if somehow he's reining in spending. But the truth is, he is not reining in spending.
But he's not the. But he didn't invent the $100 billion mistake here. This has been going on through Republican and Democratic administrations because both parties have a lot to lose if they attack these programs, don't they?
Well, I agree with you that the Republican Party certainly isn't exonerated from having a role or responsibility in some of the problems with big government. But the truth is, whereas the Republican Party has often tried to produce a balanced budget, we have not seen any response from the Democrat-controlled Senate.
But Stacy, I want to jump in here. I just want to differentiate between the idea of a balanced budget, though, and just simply stopping fraud. Why isn't the Justice Department simply going into these agencies and telling them to stop the abuse and fraud?
It's related in the sense that with an effort to balance budget, and the reason I brought that up is it may seem off topic, but it really isn't, because what happens is it would force the federal government to rein in fraud, rein in these agencies, rein in the spending.
Because they wouldn't have the money.
And so you'd see a great reduction in fraud if, in fact, we had a greater level of accountability across the board in the federal government. So
and look,
it's very relative.
And if you want taxes lowered, you got to cut the fraud here. That's a good place to start. It is your money. Stacy Swimp, thank you so much from Project 21.
Thank you.
Coming up, even as Kenya faces violence, Washington is host to a Kenyan investment summit. We'll have a live report. You're watching Rise Exchange.
If I was building my own news network, first thing I think I'd want high-quality reporters, very educated, intelligent people.
Hello, I'm Francesca Maxime.
I'm Julian Phillips.
I'm Wendy Gillette.
I'm Sophia Songhai.
I'm Gary Anthony Ramsey. Thank you for joining us here in New York City.
I would like to see more people of color represented in high positions in media.
We've got world-class journalists, veteran journalists who have been in this industry for decades, not just in front of the camera, but behind the scenes as well.
People need to understand the problems that are going on in the community are much closer than we actually think they are.
Kayla Phillips is one of the shoppers who is suing Barney's, and she is here with her attorney. What is it that you want from them?
Not to judge every African-American person that comes in your store.
Welcome back to Rise Exchange. Next month, President Obama will host the largest gathering of African leaders in the United States. In addition, the inaugural meeting of the U.S.-Africa Business Forum will be held. The government of Kenya is trying to get ahead of those efforts and today hosted a Doing Business in Kenya meeting that focused on that country's growing economy. Kenya is East Africa's economic hub and is a world leader in mobile money processing. Arise News Washington Bureau Chief James Blue attended today's meeting and is at Washington's Willard Hotel, where the session is just about to close. James, what type of investments is Kenya looking for, and did they find any investors today?
Kenya found investors today, and basically what Kenya is trying to do is expand their economy. The economy here is largely based on agriculture, the economy there is based on agriculture, and what they want to start doing, rather than sending raw vegetables to Europe and to the United States, they want to start producing items and producing food in Kenya. And the idea is that they can move up the value chain if they start processing locally. And so that was one of the sort of big areas that there was a big push around here today.
This is a very advanced economy, isn't it? So why don't you talk a little bit about what they call the Kenyan difference?
The Kenyan difference is the fact that you have a very literate workforce. I think it's just under 90%. You have really good financial services. You mentioned in the intro, Kenya has a very advanced mobile banking system. It sort of is the hub and really created a lot of the mobile banking tools that are used across Africa. So in Kenya, where a large portion of the population, about 70%, is without an actual bank, another large proportion of the country, closer to 80%, uses their mobile phone for savings, for bill payments, for transfers between people. And what that means is that you have a very vibrant and healthy sort of exchange of payments between the the formal sector and the informal sector, and that just sort of gives people a basis on which to trade. That advance in the mobile banking has really led to a big sort of information technology industry that is based in Kenya. There are a number of Kenyan companies, very surprisingly, that are doing the infrastructure and the back office operation for a number of tech companies. Google has a big operation in Kenya, and there are a number of Indian companies. You know, in the U.S., people send the back office to India. Well, in India, they send the back office to Kenya.
And it's really interesting you mentioned banking because it really does all start with banking, and that's a problem throughout all of Africa, is that a lot of people do not have access to banks. And it seems like maybe this is one of the solutions.
Kenya certainly has provided a solution in sort of mobile banking and trying to get the informal economy into a more formal economy through mobile banking. And actually, Standard Bank, which is all over Africa, they are very interested in trying to.
Okay, I think we lost James Blue there. James Blue in Washington, D.C., covering the Kenyan Investment Conference. Time now for our business ticker stories making headlines across the nation. A settlement between Citigroup and the U.S. Department of Justice could come as early as next week. Reports say the bank is close to a $7 billion deal to resolve charges of defrauding investors by selling bad mortgage securities leading up to the financial crisis. In November, J.P. Morgan Chase paid $13 billion to resolve similar allegations. And also in negotiations right now, U.S. authorities are with Bank of America. The White House talks about the gender pay gap, but a conservative group's report says maybe it should clean up its own house first. According to data released by the conservative consulting firm Target Point, the average male employee at the White House earns 13% more than the average woman. And that hasn't changed since 2009 when the president took office for his second term. The administration explains the reason is that more men hold higher-level senior positions, but also said there is more work to be done. President Obama has spoken often of closing the pay gap between men and women. It's the latest in the battle between Amazon and book publisher Hachette. The online retailer has reached out to authors directly, offering to pay them 100% of all Hachette's ebooks sold until its standoff with the publisher is resolved, effectively cutting out Hachette. At the center of the bitter months-long dispute is the price Amazon can charge for ebooks. Earlier this year, Amazon said it tried to renegotiate terms with Hachette, but they heard nothing back until it began cutting back print inventory and reducing discounts on its website. The Vatican Bank, marred by a series of financial scandals, has a new chief. French financier Jean-Baptiste Defrançois is to become the new president of the bank. Defrançois, whose expertise is investment banking, said he would tap an outside management fund to help shift the bank towards asset management. He emphasized the fund would be chosen also based on its Catholic principles. U.S. teenagers aren't topping the list when it comes to money smarts. A new international study on financial literacy among 15-year-old boys and girls found U.S. teens ranked in the middle of the pack alongside Russia and Latvia. Chinese students scored the highest, followed by Belgium and Estonia. At the bottom of the list, Italy and Colombia. And seems you can get a pizza delivered just about anywhere. A Frontiers airline pilot decided to spring into action when his Denver-bound flight had to wait out a long weather delay on the tarmac. On his own dime, the pilot ordered 50 pizzas and had them delivered to feed his hungry passengers. Definitely not the kind of customer service passengers are used to these days. Ahead, should you debate global warming by comparing Mars to Earth? Our favorite person of the day did just that, and he is next.
Arise News is a different kind of network. We are able to tell our own stories, and we're able to cover stories in a way that other media outlets don't do. We've got world-class journalists, veteran journalists who have been in this industry for decades, not just in front of the camera, but behind the scenes as well. Arise News is a place where we can tell stories in an interesting, factual, inclusive way like no one else in the business can.
Because we live in a global, interconnected world, business news no longer stops when the markets close on Wall Street. And what we've discovered over the past few years of the financial crisis is that events and news that happen even in the smallest countries impact the United States and the world at large. As we bring together experts and analysts and thought leaders and CEOs and companies across many industries to not only provide the macroeconomic view, but news everyday people can use. Pull up to the bar, time for liquid lunch, and this one will certainly make you want to drink when you see the pictures. Homes for sale often stand out for their amenities, a hot tub, pool, maybe even a bar. Well, one New York apartment is up for sale for $3.4 million, and it comes with this, about $1 million worth of stuffed animals, real animals. 61-year-old Gregory Speck has spent years collecting taxidermed beasts, deer, birds, raccoons, a bear or two. There's about 500 total specimens in his New York apartment, and he intends to sell them with the pad. Speck is not a hunter. He has just collected the animals from museums and other collectors through the years. So if you need a new luxury apartment and don't mind the 500 stuffed pets, kind of creepy that it comes with, the apartment may be for you. And that takes us to our favorite person of the day when we pick one person who grabbed our attention and not for the right reasons. Today it is Kentucky Republican State Senator Brandon Smith who says climate change can't possibly exist because the Earth's temperature is the same as the temperature on Mars. And since Mars doesn't have coal mines like Kentucky does, then coal mines can't possibly be responsible for global warming. See the logic? Smith, who also owns a mining company, surprise, says coal companies should be exempt from new EPA regulations about carbon emissions, even though the Kentucky Energy and Environmental Cabinet has stated that no coal plants will be closed due to the new rules. Now, for the record, the average temperature on Earth, according to NASA, is 57 degrees Fahrenheit. That's just a little warmer than the average temperature on Mars, which is minus 81 degrees. Because Mars, you see, is further from the sun and has a pretty thin atmosphere. Also, for the record, we really don't know for sure that Martians haven't made coal mines, don't we? And to be fair, Smith isn't the only Kentuckian with strange ideas about Earth. State Representative Kevin Sinnett, a Democrat, argued there is no man-made global warming by claiming the dinosaurs survived climate change, and therefore humans would survive climate change too. Anyone see my dinosaur around anywhere? Nope, because Mr. Sinnett, they're dead, extinct. And so Kentucky State Senator Brandon Smith, with a close second to Kevin Sinnett, is our favorite person of the day. Coming up next, the fallout of a World Cup meltdown. You're watching Arise Exchange.
Looking at mainstream news stations where only you have a very small minority of people of color being newscasters and actually having prominent roles in the media.
In a newsroom in the United States, maybe 10% of decision makers come from communities of diversity. That's not right.
Well, diversity is important because the more complete the news is, the more accurate a picture you're getting of the world, and the more you can form an accurate opinion of things.
The vision here is not just to tell the main stories of the day, but to tell the news that other organizations don't tell, and tell it in a way that people like me, people that look like me, that look like you, are interested in.
Arise News.
Arise News.
Arise News.
Arise News. Arise News, every culture, every angle.
Brazil's historic and devastating 7-1 loss against Germany in the semifinals of the World Cup may not be just on the field. More than $11 billion was spent on stadiums and other projects, and analysts say FIFA is the clear winner here, set to make about $4 billion in revenue from the games. Mike Bako from DailyNational.com is here to weigh in with more details. Welcome back to the show. We have some of the tweets, by the way, that the president of Brazil talked about, and let's put up one of those. The president said, quote, "Like every Brazilian, I am very, very sad about this defeat. I am immensely sorry for all of us fans and our players, and that is some of the kinder words
that may be the
there.
Understatement. Politicians are not usually known for their understatement. I don't think she has the finger on the pulse of the Brazilian population.
She may be a little bit afraid right now of putting that finger on that pulse, because the Brazilian population is certainly smacking. And I imagine our economy took a hit today as maybe people didn't go to work. You know, we've been talking about this issue for a long time. Brazil has had a lot of problems with the World Cup because so much money went into it, and there were so many protests against it. And then we talked, if they had a successful World Cup, a lot of that would go away. It is one loss. It is an emotionally painful loss. But the question is, does this tarnish what has been a really exciting series?
It has gone off really well. Stadiums, I know that
they didn't collapse.
They did not collapse. Bad predictions on my part. I was not too confident going into this. They were able to pull it off. Now, what was going on behind the scenes in terms of pulling it off? Maybe it was held together by duct tape and chewing gum. I think we'll see some of these stories possibly come out after the games are over. When you see these stadiums in the rainforest, in remote villages that are going to go basically abandoned and unused for years to come. I think the cycle of this story is such that, yes, these games went off very, very successfully. In 2016, with the Olympics coming, all of this is going to be dredged up again. You know, are you spending too much money for stadiums? Where did that money go? What infrastructure was left or not even built? So I think their news cycle on this, they'll come out of this not successful on the field in terms of what the Brazilian team did, but of hosting a successful event.
And should they start playing that up? Because it is a very complicated logistical nightmare, and we're going to get into the money a little bit. There's no way they're going to make money from this, probably not. But should the country just be really proud of the effort of so many more people than just the men on the field who played yesterday?
I think you look at the fact that they were able to pull this all together, and the police did not go outside of their bounds in terms of protests. Protests were going on, but you saw that before the games. Once soccer was actually played, it really is a universally binding sport. Yes, the stadium will be packed for the final game, even though Brazil wasn't there. The German fans will buy up all the Brazilian tickets in disgust. So it's something that goes on. It's bigger than just one country.
And there's some questions as to whether Brazilians will root for their neighbor and rival Argentina, or will they rather want an all-European World Cup? Does it make a difference to their bottom line?
I don't think it makes a difference to the bottom line. The tickets have already been sold. The merchandise has been bought. The stadium's going to be sold out, whether it's Netherlands playing or Argentina or Brazil or Germany. It's going to be a sellout. It was going to be a sellout from the very beginning.
For the Brazilian soccer club, what is the negative financial impact of yesterday's loss?
I think if you look at it just in terms of the money that went into planning for this, you make a lot of money as a soccer club, as a soccer federation, for winning the World Cup. So yes, there's pride on the field, but you're also looking at a bottom line of tens of millions of dollars that FIFA funnels into your soccer program. So there was a bottom line that was lost out on by losing the way that they did.
Well, and the question is, for individual players who maybe have some sponsorship deals, there's some criticism that the team quit, and they quit after the first goal.
If you watch the way that a lot of these goals were scored by the Germans were very proficient, but passing completely across the box, wide open nets, defenders seemingly just missing clearing passes. It was an embarrassing way to lose. There's losing, and then there's losing like that, where, like you said, they seem to give up, and the fans really turned on them pretty quickly. I think they were in as much shock as anyone else.
All right, let's talk about the financial impact overall of the games. You know, how much financial hit has Brazil taken, and what are they looking to recover here? Are they going to do better than they thought or worse than they thought?
I think in terms of, you don't really know where this money is actually going. They're not seeing any.
Are they not so transparent? Is that
they are not, surprisingly enough. But what is transparent is that the TV money goes to FIFA. Goes to FIFA. The advertising, some of these big corporate sponsors, yes, they're coming in, holding events. You're seeing that probably trickle down to the hotels and the restaurants and some of the different infrastructure there. But in terms of this massive idea that people from the Netherlands are going to keep coming back, or the U.S.
Well, that's the point, is all of these people who are visited, on all the hotels that are filled and all the restaurants that are being patronized, they will all go home after this weekend.
Absolutely. They will all go home. And then even some of these outpost areas where they build stadiums in the hopes that it will draw tourism, the only tourism it would draw is if they're hosting another world-class caliber soccer event, and they probably won't in these remote areas.
And about 30 seconds left or so. Will there be any pressure on FIFA to change the economic model in 4 years?
I don't think so, because ultimately everyone shares in this, all the federation members in FIFA, so they want to see that money coming in. They want to see the TV money coming in, and ultimately they want to host. Cities and states and countries are clamoring to host this event.
No matter how you do financially.
No matter how you do financially.
Mike Bako, you've been terrific on this event over the last couple of weeks.
Appreciate
it. Tomorrow on Rise Xchange, Essence Magazine publisher and co-founder Edward Lewis stops by to reveal the secrets of his success and insight into the power of a brand. Let's take a look at how the markets did today on the day that the Fed released its monthly minutes to announce that the stimulus plan, the bond buying program, will be wound down by October. There are the numbers. I'm Andrew Schmertz. Thanks for watching Rise Xchange.